All right, check, 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 check. Hopefully we're live and in action. All right. Okay, good. That's a good sign. Okay. All right. So let's just do a little housekeeping. I need to make Sean, you're a co-host, and Lisa, you are a co-host as well. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So, and you guys can unmute yourself, I think now. Okay, you good? Sean, you there?
Yep, I'm here.
All right. So we're 1 minute away. Shall we get going? All right. So I am excited to welcome everyone to this, our third and our fifth of five series. We are going to be talking today about alternative education. But before that, let me just do a little introduction of myself. My name is Michael Kelly. I'm a professor at Loyola in the School of Social Work. I direct something called the School of Mental Health Advanced Practice Program, which is a program that provides advanced training and support for people looking to become social emotional leaders in their buildings and to do cool things like you're about to hear, because you're about to meet 3 of our current students and the awesome work they're doing. What we're also going to be doing, just to note, is we're going to have a hopefully very active chat in the chat box. We're a big enough group that we probably won't have a lot of direct voice-to-voice conversations. So if you have, first of all, I'd love if you would just introduce yourself and say what kind of alternative education environment you're in. That would be helpful just to get, for us to get a sense of that. So just put in the chat that material. I've muted everybody except for my my presenters today in the panel, because I want to make sure that we don't have a lot of background noise. But we will do our best to attend to every question that people have. And again, we're a small enough group that we will be able to hopefully get to everybody's questions today. Just another housekeeping note. This is, as I said, a third of 5 of these. We're doing 2 more tomorrow. One is for early childhood at 10 a.m. Central Time. The other one is middle school, and I believe it's at 3 o'clock, if I double check that right. It's on the events page in School Social Work Network. So you can go check those out or send those to your friends. We are going to be streaming those as well from our YouTube channel. So if you can't get in to those, you can definitely watch them there. We are also providing certificates of participation, not CEUs for these. These are free. We're not doing CEUs, but if you need that for your district or just want to have one, we will make that available for you as well. Check our YouTube channel for that, probably later today or tomorrow morning. The last thing that's going to come up, because these guys are awesome and they're going to get into some great stuff in just a minute, is what are the ways that I can get these materials? How can I get the slides? You know, all that sort of stuff. So that is going to be, I will put a link in a minute into the chat of where the Google Drive folder is. You can go get those, look at the materials, all the awesome stuff these guys are going to be talking about. I also want to know there's one more person that isn't here today that I will be kind of presenting her, Jaclyn Williams, and we recorded her. She had a very good healthcare thing, not a healthcare thing like we're all worried about these days. She had an appointment she had to keep, but she is not able to be here today, but she will be here. We'll see her and hear from her in a minute. That's kind of the announcements of that. The last little bit I want to say, to just give an overview for this, and then I'll introduce Lisa and ask her to say more about where we're going, is we intentionally designed this to be a webinar that was trying to address alternative education in many different facets. So as you sit here today and as you look at what people are already putting in the chat, you know, some of you are going to be in schools that are charter schools, that are specific population schools. Some of you will be in settings that are special ed cooperatives or therapeutic day schools or special ed schools of other kinds. There's many different ways that we can be looking at this. We didn't define it explicitly as parochial schools, though there might be some of you that fit that too, and you're welcome to that. The point is that we know that this crisis is making all of us have to rethink and redo a lot of things that are new for us and certainly new for our kids. And we wanted to make one that was explicitly focused on special populations, knowing that one of the things that we often see when we have kids in crisis in special ed environments or specialized environments is they're even more vulnerable for a variety of reasons. So I'm very grateful and happy to say that we have on today 3 of the students that I've been able and privileged to teach at Loyola, and they're all experienced school social workers. They've been part of the School Mental Health Advanced Practice Program, which is this 15 credit, 99% online 2-year program. They'll probably say a little bit about that and what it's done for them. If you're interested in that, you can certainly reach out to me. I'll put some links in the chat as well as we're going today. And we are looking for people who want to apply for August 1st is the deadline, though you can apply before then. But most importantly, today is about these guys. So I want to give over to Lisa Baker, and she's going to be our first presenter.
Hello, everybody. It's nice to see, well, or hear that everybody's here. So I am a school social worker at an in-district alternative high school setting or school setting. I work with middle school and I work with middle school and with high school students.
Hold on.
Get out of your screen.
Yeah, hold on, Lisa. I wanted to get your picture on there.
Oh.
Are you on camera while you're talking? Did you do
I
that?
am, yes.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm not sure why that's not working for us. Okay, I'm sorry. You're going to be a disembodied. You're going to be a disembodied voice talking. Sorry about that.
All right. Well, so I work with all IEP students, although there are there are 4 programs in the building. One is our 18 to 21. They call it P-STEP. So it's work prep, that kind of thing, life skills. And then the other is Turnabout, which is for regular education students. But I work with therapeutic, and I work with the therapeutic academic or TAP program, and I work with the more traditional behavioral program, it's really great. I love what I do. I'm very fortunate to be passionate about it and have this wonderful job that I get to interact with all these kids that are just incredible. My caseload is fluid. So sometimes I have sometimes I have 15. Last year I ended up with like 25, but these kids all are all high social emotional needs. So the caseload of 25 can feel a lot like a caseload of 50. When we were told that we were going to be going to remote learning, right after the governor in Illinois said that we were, schools were being closed, there was a lot of wait and see information because we didn't have information from the district or from the state, and so the district couldn't pass along any information. So it was like information feast or famine. So for a while there was nothing going on because they didn't know anything, and then they would get information and they would say, here's the information that you need, and then there would be a lot of information, and then the state would say, oh wait, we changed our mind, and then there would be nothing until all of a sudden you got it all out again. So it was feast or famine, and for the first couple of weeks it was a little stressful. The thing is that with alternative education that I wanted to mention specifically is that it's difficult to get program specific information. So like my district did a great job with getting information for general information, and then getting out to special ed. But I think it's a little difficult for people who don't work in the alternative education environment with specialized programs to truly understand that there are things that we would think of that we may need that others don't. So it was interesting to see. And what we ended up doing was, we had questions, we just asked, and we run it up the chain of command, and then they would give us our answer. And so we've learned to do it on a case-by-case basis, which works. It's not the most expedient, but it works, and we're all getting under, we're all getting into the groove of things right now. Our district struggled, I think, a little bit to figure out IEP meetings. Basically, we canceled every IEP meeting that wasn't absolutely necessary at first. And now we're starting to go back to being able to have some more meetings that are not just having to have them in order to be in legal compliance. But we are stressing those legal compliance IEPs. And when filling out the remote service plans that we have to fill out in Illinois and stuff like that, we were trying to figure out how to meet some specific goals. So in our program, there are some specific criteria for progress monitoring, such as we have daily progress cards. So a lot of progress monitoring is they'll receive 75% in this category. They'll receive a cumulative of 80%. Well, that's no longer there. So we had to come up with some creative ways to address those goals and have them be measured, still be legally compliant, because we didn't want to amend every IEP. So we're working things out. The goals are usually written to, where it covers the basis, social skills. You can definitely do that remotely. You can do anger management. You can do all sorts of different things remotely, which can be covered under the IEP. So we've been able to do that. We've been taking that route. How to meet related service minutes. It's basically, my district went with, well, if you have to use consult minutes, use consult minutes. So if you're talking to parents, you can count that as minutes. If you're talking to staff, consulting with staff, you can use that as minutes. The lessons that you're doing online or putting out for print, you can count, prep time and that kind of thing in order to try to make the minutes. But we had to relay that to the parent so that they're aware ahead of time, so that they're not surprised with, oh, wait, my student didn't get their 30 minutes in the IEP by, talking, by, face-to-face or conversation or video or whatever. So we've been given a broad way to kind of help meet those minutes so we can stay in legal compliance. And as far as like challenges and opportunities, the challenge is that, the lack of specific information, having to come up with creative progress monitoring, and then worrying about the student's safety. I mean, a lot of our students, and I've been at alternative schools before this, a lot of those students that I've encountered, school is their safe place. And I'm sure that's like that everywhere. But in the populations that I've worked with, it seems to be a much higher incidence of school being their safe space where they have structure, they have rules, that kind of thing. So there's that concern. Some of the students that I work with in the therapeutic program have significant mental health concerns, self-harm, anxiety, depression, suicidality. And then you've got the ones that are on the spectrum and they're out of their routine. And now all kids struggle, everybody struggles when they're out of their routine, but when you have students that are on the spectrum, as we know, they can really stress. And then you add a significant mental health diagnosis on top of that, and then there's real reason for concern. Okay, next slide. So my plan was overall to stay connected. My idea is I am a resource. I am here to support my students in the way that I can in order to help them get their work done and be safe and feel as secure as possible during this very strange time. So what I did first, and I highly recommend it, I created a Google Voice number, so that I had that separation. So I was able to text with students, but I didn't have to give them my cell phone number. I even created a separate Google email address just so that if they were to come across it, that it was connected to that number, not my personal number. And then for the younger students, I made sure to get permission from from parents to text, because I didn't want, I want, we're social workers, and that needs to be, there can't be, the level of confidentiality is different, but also I didn't want anybody to say, well, why are you texting my student? And then of course we had, district wanted to make sure that we got permission for individual Zooms or videos. So we did that. I do a group with my therapeutic kids on Thursdays. And so that's been really great to stay connected. We're using it as a way of, social skills kind of on the spot. So, we're basically talking about how our week is going, what's going on with work, what's going on with your schoolwork, and that kind of thing. And then the interactions, and I kind of watch the interactions and say, okay, we talked about this in group before. How can we implement this when we're having our conversations? So working on social skills that way. And then another way that I have not had a chance to implement yet, but is Flipgrid, which is a really great kind of thing. It's asynchronous videos. So you can post it on Google Classroom or on Microsoft Teams, and you can create videos and have them respond. So the idea is that create a video asking like a journal prompt. And then instead of having them write something back, like ask a question, do a journal prompt and say, now write, journal for 10 minutes, they could do a 90-second video in response to that. So that's something that I'm hoping to set up this week. But I've seen it done and it's really good. And the next thing is on my Google Classroom, I provide brain breaks. So last week it was a video about what happened in the COVID, but other things that you can do are just silly cat videos, just silly cat videos, silly dog videos, just something that gives them 60 to 90 seconds of pure nothing, just sitting. And I think that's important because right now, schoolwork is important, but right now, everything that's going on with mental health, everything that's so scary and everything out there, I think that everybody needs to remember to take a brain break. Everybody needs that. So that's why that's there. Another thing is Pixton, where if you have some kids that are cognitively lower, and they can create a comic book cell. So if you ask a question of, explain to me how you were feeling last week, they can create an avatar and then a little thought bubble that says, I felt blah, blah, blah. And so it works really well with kids like that. And again, you can use Flipgrid for that too. Just something fun. You can post something silly, ask them to post something silly. Again, these are things that you're going to want. Flipgrid is something you're going to want permission for because it is video. Then the other interventions the SEL interventions, I've been using Google Classroom. And one of the things that is important is getting to their individual goals. So far I have put out on my Google Classroom to everybody, I've put out, coping strategies, self-care, growth mindset, mental health, other resources, like mindfulness and that kind of thing, all of which I've put in the shared Google document that you guys will have access to, and some of them at the end of the presentation. But then there's the individual goals. So I have if I have a student that has decision-making goals that, while that could be useful for everybody, this student has that, so I need that data. So I'm emailing, printing, or posting specific students on Google Classroom to meet those goals so that I can get something back and get that data so that I can progress monitor at the end of the year. And then my last thing that I always do is, never stop trying. So I have students that have not said anything to me the entire time we've been gone. And that's going to happen. That's just the nature of what's going on. That's the nature of the kids. It's the nature of the relationship. But I still include them in my video, in my Google Classroom, and send them emails. I reach out to them by phone if I have that information. I text. I make sure they know that I'm available by text. that kind of thing. And so, you know, because you never know when one day the kid's going to be like, all right, I'm going to get this lady off my back by answering the call. Or I had a particularly bad day, and yes, talking to somebody would be nice. So there's that. And so with everything that's going on, I want to say that you've got to remember to self-care and check your stress level. Make sure that you're taking care of yourself, because otherwise you can't take care of other people. And I'm not the best at that, but make sure you're doing it. So try to do something every day for yourself. And that I'm now going to enter into my remote learning plan, because that needs to be part of that as well, to take care of myself. So the only other thing that I wanted to say is with the texting. With my high schoolers, they have a tendency to text at like 9 o'clock at night. What I did was I made very, very sure that they knew that this was not for emergencies. This is for check-ins, general emotional states, and that if they texted me at 9 or 10 at night, that I would not be getting back to them until the next school day during school hours. So, so far I've had luck and not had anybody cross those boundaries. I've had 1 or 2 texts at night, at night that were waited till the morning, and there were no issues. But I think that it's important to be upfront with them with that, because you don't want to get a text at 9:30 at night and feel, oh my God, I have to answer this text. And the other thing is that there is a do not disturb function, so that if you don't even want to have to deal with that, you just put on do not disturb. And then you don't even see that until you take it off in the morning. And that's that. And now we're going to move on to Sean.
Thank you, Lisa.
All right, Dr. Kelly, you want me to get started?
Yeah, can I do some real quick? I'm going to go find the actual Google Drive link, or
Sure.
maybe if you have it, Sean, I don't know if you have it and could put it in the chat, if that's possible.
Yes, it is. 1 second. Hopefully I'm not making false promises here.
Yeah, I can track it down too. Just the way that the screen's working today is a little hinky, so I was asking if you had it. But
shareable link, and I believe that should be it.
Yeah, that's it. You're good.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Sean Delaney, and I am the Director of Counseling, Wellness, and Support Services at Columbus School for Girls, or what you will hear me say now on from here on out, CSG. We are an all-girls independent school in Columbus, Ohio. And I think, given to Dr. Kelly's point, the kind of diversity of the settings in this panel, I want to just give you a little bit of context about where I'm coming from and what my role includes, because it is a bit different than some of my colleagues and peers. So I have this really unique and privileged opportunity to serve in this kind of triad of teaching, counseling, and social work, as well as administrative oversight and responsibilities. So you can imagine that creates some really authentic, amazing opportunities for leadership, for programming, for student support, but also adds a layer of complexity that is a little unique to my position, which I'll explain a bit more as well as we talk about implementation of services, both virtually and just for my role in general. To give you a sense of some of my big hitting items that I take care of, my roles and responsibilities, I am the middle school and high school counselor. I take care of all tiers 1 through 3 service provision for those students. Tier 1 is a heavy collaboration with teachers, or faculty as we refer to them, and administrators doing program implementation and some other SEL things. That being said, I facilitate, oversee, and coordinate all of that. And I do one-on-one and small group appointments with 6th through 12th grade girls. Additionally, I am the SEL coordinator, or the equivalent of, in my building. I do a lot of that work just in terms of development of program for the middle school. And then we've developed a great kind of train the trainer model where my middle school faculty take a lot of ownership over implementation and we follow up support and kind of tier 3 kiddos to me. In the upper school, that looks a bit different. I both coordinate, facilitate, and implement about 90% of our SEL programming for the high school. And I'll talk a bit about what that looks like and how I've been able to translate that into our current environment. And then the final piece that I want to hit on is my support services role. So I am essentially the director of special ed for my school. I administratively oversee support services, which is our special ed equivalent, which includes occupational therapy, 3 learning specialists, which is our equivalent of an intervention specialist, a literacy specialist, and a math specialist. So that is my support services team. And I work and serve as their director and really kind of oversee the department as a department chair might, if that's a role that you guys are more familiar with. And so we'll talk a bit about that implementation process from virtual learning as well. The wellness component of my job is one of my favorites and one that I take a lot of pride in, but it really authentically ties into both support services and counseling. From the student side of things, wellness includes a lot of that SEL programming, as well as trying to collaborate and creatively think about partnerships with our health and PE departments, our art departments, and some of our other fine arts departments, thinking about how we might integrate kind of holistic wellness opportunities into cross-curricular content. And then for faculty and staff, I collaborate with one of our health teachers, and we provide a lot of really unique and awesome wellness programming and content for our faculty and staff, which I've included and continue to do through virtual instruction, which has been great. And I'll link to some of those resources in the Google Drive as well. I wanted to actually kind of do this just slightly backwards. I am going to talk to you about my remote learning plan, but I wanted to preface with some of my don't forgets right off the bat. And I'm going to add to these and I'll kind of comment on them, but the top 3 for me right now is remembering that everybody needs breaks. We need breaks, kids need breaks, parents need breaks. Our pets, if they're with you at home and loving life and becoming increasingly codependent like mine, they need breaks too. So just making sure that we're trying to incorporate that in for everyone's health and well-being. Patience and grace should drive my day. I really try to launch and finish my day from a place of understanding, flexibility, and just being patient. Knowing that my colleagues are, educating, preschool age children of their own, and also trying to teach 7th grade math and manage all the things at home and kind of everything in between that. And so when I don't hear back from them on a timeline that feels like it's important to me, I need to give a moment and take a breath. And recognize the many moving parts and pieces for everybody. And that goes for my kiddos that I've not heard from. So you heard Lisa talk about kiddos she's not heard from. That gets really frustrating and disconcerting and nerve-wracking. And that could be happening for any number of reasons. And so as much concern goes into that moment, I also am trying to be patient and demonstrate some grace there, recognizing that internet access, family situations, et cetera, might be a contributing factor to their absence. And then the final piece, and one that I've been hitting home with a lot for my students, is saving space for grief and joy. I work with a lot of senior class students, and so really allowing them to feel okay about embracing the fact that they're heartbroken, that they're missing a lot of developmental milestones and life cycle milestones and graduations and celebrations. And it's okay to feel sad and lament that. But also working actively to seek joy and embrace those moments that make you laugh, make you smile, and make you happy during the day as well. So those are just some of the don't forgets as we head into some of the remote learning pieces. So my remote learning plan, I'm trying to kind of touch on my 3 key stakeholder groups and talk a little bit about what I'm doing across those 3 groups. And I felt like that would be a good way to present this information to all of you. So my remote learning plan is centered on 3 core tenets: student population, my parent and community population, and faculty staff population. And at the core of it all, I am basing all of this on the power of connection. And the power of connection might not always look like it has before, it probably doesn't. But how are we creatively problem solving this idea that I can't have my kiddos in my office and playing with kinetic sand and, under the lights of Christmas lights in my office in that really calm space. But how do I still connect with them on a deep and meaningful level? And the same goes for my colleagues and for parents, families, and community members. So what this has looked like for me, students are still able to do one-on-one and small group sessions I do all of my scheduling through Google Calendar appointments. So I am happy to link to a brief tutorial on that. I've actually created one for colleagues in the shared drive. You're able to create appointment slots on your Google Calendar, and students are able to sign up for them. And then as soon as they do, that appointment slot disappears. It helps me to set a really healthy boundary with reserving those spaces for kiddos. It also holds space on my calendar for student appointments. This is equally as important in the building as it is out of the building, to make sure that those kind of chronic recurring meetings that we all love and know so well don't eat up my entire day, because really at the heart of it all, I am in my space or on my laptop and doing my job because I want to be there for kids, and they need that space reserved for them. And so that is how I've been doing all of my scheduling. And then I preface that weekly reminder email to my middle school and high school students with the fact that if you don't see a time that works, let me know. And I will absolutely make that a priority to find a time that works for everybody's schedule. But it's been a great tool in streamlining that process. It also can alleviate the kind of nervousness that might come with reaching out to your school counselor, especially if students don't know me super well or have not worked with me before. It can be a great way for them to say, I do need to talk to somebody, but I don't really know how to ask for help. And so they can just slide into that appointment slot, and then they get the meeting info from me, and we can start that way. It's kind of a level playing field, which can be nice. I also run a CSG Wellness Instagram account. So this was launched about a year ago and was a pet project of mine, thinking about how much time my girls are spending on screens. Especially now, I really wanted to try and break up their feeds with something that felt positive and empowering, and was really maybe breaking up some of the other just noise that was streaming on their Instagram. So the CSG Wellness Instagram is a private account. You are required to follow us and then gain access approval from myself, because we occasionally spotlight students, parents, and faculty members. So really wanting to be mindful about privacy, but also providing another outlet for kids that is also something that kids are using, right? So it didn't need to be an additional click or another add-on or something they needed to go find. If they're clicking through their feed, it's just going to appear. And so I have spent even more time on that now than I was before, just trying to break up their stream with some wellness-based content. And that's been a lot of fun. We do grade level drop-in Zoom times. So 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade all have a bi-weekly, so twice a week, drop-in time for a half hour with me. And a couple of my colleagues, if they'd like to join in as well. And that's really about fostering connection and community that has nothing to do with core content or curriculum. Really trying to provide them a space where it's just like, hey, how are you doing? What's your dog doing that's funny? Are you outside? Are you inside? Have you talked to anybody, done anything, baked a new cake, whatever it is? Really just trying to provide them some community space to connect and share and hang out. I am always present just to monitor the space, but 9 times out of 10, they don't really need me there so much. It's just about creating the opportunity for them to connect with one another. And then social emotional learning programming. This has been a roller coaster ride, to say the least. Dr. Kelly knows I do a lot of programming at school. And so it's become a bit of my bread and butter and something I really, really enjoy, to the extent that I actually developed 2 courses that I co-teach that are based in social emotional learning skills across grade levels. And so I've continued to teach that content through Loom, L-O-O-M, which is a free video recording software, and it is really user-friendly. It's linked in the resource page. I record my Loom videos that also include a screen share function, and then I can copy that link and send it to the students through Google Classroom or through email. I have interviewed a couple of guest speakers and shared content out that way. I bring a lot of guest speakers into the building. And then thinking about some of the other just resources and things like that, all go up through a Google Classroom space for some of the grade levels as well. So that's been a lot of fun. I am disheartened on some days because so much of that work actually rides and is driven by discussion and by relationship in those spaces. Yes, Anastasia, I did say Loom, L-L-O-M, yes. And so part of that has been really difficult, because asking the students to come in and share in a space where we're not able to build that feeling of comfort and rapport because the physical space is something that's predictable and routine, has been trickier, but we're doing our best. The other two cohorts of folks that I am working really diligently to support, community, I'm including our parent community as well. Weekly resource share outs. So every Friday, team leadership, our school leadership sends out an email to each division. So our divisions are preschool, lower, middle, and upper. And I will do content share outs for the middle and upper cohorts of families. These are articles, links, just reflections from me based on conversations I've been having with their kids. Obviously, no identifying information, but broad spectrum themes. I think, the new New York Times article is awesome, but why I chose it, why I've read it, and what I took from it, I think can be a great segue for families in case they don't have the time or the energy to read one more thing that's a live link. I get it. So I try to supplement that with just some of my own reflection on the piece and maybe a takeaway or two. We've been doing some virtual coffee hour drop-ins for families. And so if they'd like to come in the mornings, I've joined some, my administrators have hosted some, just creating space for families. Again, that senior family cohort is really struggling. And so creating some space for them to kind of process and mourn and ask questions and be cranky some days, and that's okay too, has been really life-giving. And then we think about COVID resources and updates. We have a really flourishing school website and a great communications team who is able to streamline some of the content I'm sharing, as well as some of the more logistical and operational pieces, and that's all housed in one location, which I know is kind of common practice. We have a slight advantage being a smaller independent school. You're not needing to navigate a large district site or a co-op site. You're really able to get right at all of our resources and information in one place, which I just think is really helpful. And then one of my favorite things, my faculty and staff, my dear colleagues. So we've been doing team meetings, which is really standard practice when we're in the building as well, but trying to maintain on the same days as usual, the same day or at the same times as humanly possible, really trying to create some routines so that we're checking in with one another and making sure we're recognizing any students of concern and talking through that. I draft a Wellness Weekly newsletter every Friday. I've been doing that all year. That's been another pet project of mine, where faculty and staff are able to submit kindness shout outs, and we typically call them healthy selfies, but right now we're calling them social distancing selfies. And so capturing moments from home that you want to share with your colleagues. I'll do a write-up of an article or a resource. And then we also have a point competition for wellness points, things like staying hydrated, getting sleep, taking brain breaks, connecting with colleagues outside of school, and a lot of other things. And there's a whole backstory on point tracking that I'm not going to take you guys through, but they get an update on all of that at the end of the week, which has been a lot of fun. And then I think my dyad partner, Carlos, is on this call somewhere. I've been sharing some of this content with him, our social distancing self-care emails. So I don't know about you guys, but I get inundated with resources, with all sorts of things all the time. And I love them and I think they're cool. I don't necessarily have the need for all of it. I don't have children myself, but some of it would be great if I did have a young one at home. Things like live streams from aquariums and go visit the Bronx Zoo virtually or Mount Rushmore, fitness workouts that are free, just all the things that I want to be promoting for them to take care of themselves and their families. So that all gets put together in a weekly email as well, and goes out to faculty and staff once a week. And then the big one that's a little bit more conceptual in nature, but one that I've taken very seriously, is supporting my colleagues in establishing boundaries. I can speak quite frankly that the boundary between home life and work life has really blurred for me in the last couple of weeks. I find myself answering emails and addressing things at really oddball times, and not being able to walk away in as authentic of a way as I could when we were at school. And that was already a struggle, right? I don't leave it at the door super well. And so trying to think about ways in which I can not only be walking the walk with boundaries, but supporting my teaching colleagues, my administrative colleagues in establishing boundaries for themselves and for their overall wellness and kind of mental health, to be quite honest. A couple of logistical notes that I just want to share with you guys. We did create a virtual instruction waiver. We are in a position, again, with a slightly smaller population, we were able to get parent signatures electronically through a platform we use on all of those. but it could also be done as a passive consent. So some of my other independent school colleagues created a similar virtual instruction waiver and did a passive consent model, meaning that a parent had to opt their child out instead of agreeing to opt them in. That waiver covered things like one-on-one meetings with teachers and counselors, receiving social, emotional, and academic support virtually, etc. Just some good language to cover us as a community and make sure families were understanding and signing off on what this was going to look like. Well, at the time, what we thought for a few weeks, and now through the duration of the school year. And the other piece is another resource I'll share, and is also linked in the resource packet, is Doxy, DOXY. That is a HIPAA compliant free telehealth platform. So if you're looking for a space to meet with students and you're feeling you need a little extra security or some boundaries around that, Doxy is a great resource as well. So like I said, I'll be sharing all of those through the Google Drive and happy to speak to them further. I am going to hand this over to Dr. Kelly to introduce Jaclyn, but anybody on the call, I'm on the network site and happy to connect and share resources, process through things, etc. So please don't hesitate to reach out.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you very much. So just a couple housekeeping notes. I'm going to go now in a minute to Jaclyn and her presentation. And as I shared, she had to go, so she wasn't able to be here today. So we recorded it and pre-recorded it. It's about a 13-minute presentation, so we'll be up against our hour. But we will, Lisa and Sean will be able to answer any questions maybe you even have during the chat while Jaclyn's going, and we will make some time at the end as well. All right, so this is our friend Jaclyn. You're going to see me, you're going to see all of them, all of her stuff, and here we go. All right, I'm here with Jaclyn Williams. She is a school social worker, and she'll tell you more about herself in a minute. She's also a member of our school mental health advanced practice program, and I'm excited to have her still join us virtually, in a virtual space, to talk about the work she's been doing to support her kids during this time. So Jaclyn, take it away.
Great. Hi, everyone. I'm going to share my screen so you can see my presentation. All righty. So like Professor Kelly said, my name is Jaclyn Williams, and I'm a school social worker at SSW, which is a special education cooperative located in DuPage County. I work specifically in their STARS autism program. So all the students in STARS have a primary diagnosis of autism, and they all also have an IEP. I personally have a caseload of 30 students spanning from 3rd through 8th grade, and my students have a lot of varied abilities in their communication and social skills. A lot of my students also have a comorbid diagnosis, and I have a number of kiddos who access general education academics but are still working on some behavioral concerns, as well as kiddos who are completely self-contained and working on just functional life skills. So it's kind of a mixed pot, if you will. I'm really excited to be here today to share with you all how I'm implementing remote learning with my student population and hopefully give you guys some helpful tips. So through all of this, I've really tried to remain focused on providing connection and familiarity with my students. This is really a crazy time for everybody, but especially for my students who thrive on schedules and really predictable routines. So I'm going to go through my remote learning plan here to share with you all how I'm staying connected to my kids. So something that was really helpful in the beginning of all of this is that the STARS SEL team actually had a meeting to divvy up roles really clearly. So our team is made up of myself and another social worker, a psych, a behavior analyst, and then a nurse. So we decided that social workers would focus primarily on direct instruction in the digital learning platforms, which has been really helpful to narrow down my role and focus during this time and give me just one thing to really plan and focus on. So overall, I'm trying to provide similar services as I would in person. And just for reference, I have 3 classrooms with 10 students in each classroom. So for Tier 1, all my kiddos receive a whole group 1 time per week. I model it after my typical whole groups that I would deliver in person. So they all start with a check-in on Google Forms, and it's really just like a 5-point scale feelings check-in. To gauge, how they're feeling. And then I also have some additional questions to see if they need any other supports. I've also gotten into a routine. I really like using Google Slides, just kind of like this, to make a presentation about a specific topic. So such as perspective taking, I'm doing that with my middle schoolers right now. And then I just record my voice over it as the teaching component. And I always try to include some sort of link to a video, or if I can embed a video in the Google Slides, just so it gives a video model for my students who really thrive on like those visual supports. And then I pair that presentation with a comprehension worksheet with various prompts just to see if the students are understanding the concept. So that's kind of what my Tier 1 services look like. It's really modeled that's exactly what a whole group looks like when I'm in person. It's just not in a digital format, if you will. So for Tier 2, I have to be honest, this tier really took me some time to conceptualize how I was actually delivering this. But now I've got some things running that I think are working well for the students. So for Tier 2 services, I've been posting small group lessons to students tailored to their IEP goals one time per week. So I have a lot of different topics going, but some of the group topics I'm working on are social problem solving, coping strategies, and then peer collaboration. So I'm going to walk you through a more in-depth example of what one of those groups actually looks like. So I have a peer collaboration group that consists of 2 students. They're both 5th graders, and they're both on target to return to their homeschool districts next school year. We'll see what happens with all of this COVID stuff, but that's the plan right now. And they both access a lot of general education classes for core academics. They have very similar IEP goals because they struggle working collaboratively in a group. You know, they want to do my way's the highway. So I have an IEP goal based on a rubric that they both use just to, you know, compromise with others, work effectively in a group, stay on topic, etc. So for this Tier 2 group, the teacher and I have actually collaborated, and we've assigned them a collaborative project where they need to put together a Google slide presentation about a famous person. They actually just chose it today. They're going to do Albert Einstein. And so the teacher and I broke down the project into mini steps, kind of like a little task analysis. We broke down the project into 3 specific sections for them. So number 1, compromising and picking the person, researching and taking notes on the person, and then putting together the presentation slides and turning it in. So each week, their teacher and I Zoom with them to help walk them through the steps of the project. And we start each session by just going over our CHAMPS behavioral expectations. And then I actually share my screen and I read them a social narrative about working nicely with others. And then we go over the next, task analysis part of the project. And then we give the students an opportunity to ask questions and then talk to each other about how they're going to move forward. So they might say, you know what, I'm going to schedule a phone call with you later this week to check on how we're doing with our notes for the project. And then the teacher and I are there just kind of to facilitate those interactions. So during the actual Zoom session itself, I'm taking data on the components of their IEP goal rubric. So for example, I tally how many times each student blurts out, how many on-topic comments they make, and then I give them like a plus or a minus for being able to compromise with their peer. So that was a little bit involved getting it set up, but now once the teacher and I have run it and kind of gone through those expectations, we've been finding it's been going really well, and we've been really impressed with our students being able to collaborate together outside of class, like outside of a teacher, facilitating it and coming up with an end product. Then for Tier 3 services, I try to check in weekly with all my Tier 3 kiddos, whether that be an individual email, a phone call, or a Zoom session. I also will have individual sessions if I have a student report that I have a parent report that they're having a particularly difficult time with the student, which has happened. I've had a couple of parents reach out and saying my student's having a lot of anxiety and uncertainty, so I'll schedule a one-on-one as needed. We also have a very unique case right now where we are running a remote behavior intervention plan with the family, and it's tailored specifically to the COVID-19 crisis and his behaviors at home from there. So early on in all of this one kiddo that I work with, he has a lot of anxiety, and he was showing a really big increase at home in physical aggression. And so he was really struggling. So mom reached out, and then as a team, we decided to run this remote BIP plan. It's a pretty unique case, but what we did is we had parents initially make a list of all of these behaviors that were escalating at home. And then as a team with mom, we chose the 2 behaviors we felt that were particularly dangerous and really needed to be focused on. So the first one is that he's eloping from the house and verbally harassing the mailman and like if people are walking or jogging outside. And the second behavior is that they were seeing a very notable increase in physical aggression during the remote learning times. So what we did as a team is we made a behavioral point sheet, which is modeled after his typical school, point sheet where he has a check-in after each subject. And he's able to earn different reinforcers throughout the day based on his behavior. So we talked to mom about what that could look like in their setting. So then to tie that BIP from like home to school and school to home, so he reports his behavior points to the teacher in a daily journal and then reflects on what went well and what was difficult for him. And then we as a team check in with mom weekly to tweak any aspects of the plan. So that's definitely been something brand new. I've never done something like that. It's a unique case, but we found that mom feels really supported, and that's ultimately the best that we can do at this time. So for my tier 3 services, I think they look a lot different than they do in a normal school setting at this point. And I think probably goes to say the same for everyone else, but we're just trying to kind of meet parents where they're at. So that's just an overview of how I'm running actual direct services to students. Oops. Now I'm going to move into some helpful programs I've used so far. This list has some of the other panelist resources. I'm going to focus on the 2 down there, Everyday Speech Social Skills and EverFi. So Everyday Speech Social Skills is an online video modeling curriculum program that I really, really like. I used this in the school setting, and I found that it's been pretty easy to transition into remote learning. So it breaks down different skills and has video models with real children in them to demonstrate those skills. And it's appropriate for, if you see right there, pre-K through high school, and they have a lot of different curriculum topics. So this is actually a screenshot on my screen here. And you can see all the different topics and skills that they have broken down. And under each one of those topics, there's about 4 to 5 videos and activities and worksheets that students can do related to that topic. So I really love these videos because they show kiddos going through real life experiences, and they slow it down and ask question prompts throughout. So you might be watching a video and then they'll stop and have a discussion question come up. How does this kid feel? How do we know he feels that way? And then they actually give the explanation as well. So they could say, oh, you can look at someone's face to figure out how they're feeling, or their body cues. So it's really helpful, especially with the autism population, to have that video model for students. Another thing I really like about this program is it stops and it'll pause the screen and it'll show a kid's thought bubble in the video and kind of play out what they're thinking. So that's a term we use a lot in the autism community, and it's really helpful to have a program modeling that as well. So right now, Everyday Speech is offering a 30-day free trial to clinicians and parents, and I've been using this as a tier 2 in this remote learning time. So I'll just tell a student, log in, go to, situational awareness, and watch the second video, and then I'll have them submit, a writing prompt about what they learned. Another resource I found really helpful during this time is EverFi. It's a free online learning platform. They have courses for students K through 12. So they have a lot of different learning domains and one specifically tailored to SEL. How it works is you can create a free teacher account, and then you create student accounts underneath that, and then you can assign them to specific courses and classes. So they offer SEL courses on, character education, empathy, health and wellness, and then digital citizenship. So as you see here, I like to use the Compassion Project course for my students. They list for 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade. I've honestly, depending on where my students are at, I've been able to use them through 2nd through 5th grade with my kiddos. And what I really like about it is the students complete it on their own individually. And there's different modules, and there's pre and post tests for each module that gets sent back to the teacher. So I can look at their scores and see if they're really grasping a concept, or if I need to, figure out some other teaching methods for them. So those have been 2 resources that I found helpful to move into the remote learning. So hopefully you guys can access those. And I wanted to just wrap it up by giving some general helpful tips that I've learned throughout this process. So number 1, adhere to a schedule. My organization set our hours from 9 to 2, and so I'm really making sure to stick to that as not to burn myself out or get too overwhelmed with things. I've communicated to all my parents that these are the hours I'm available, and I found that it's just super helpful for my own mental health to have that schedule set and have some sort of boundary set. Number two, I would recommend scheduling a break during your day. I think it's really easy. I've had those days to get bogged down in Zoom meeting after Zoom meeting, and that can be just so mentally exhausting when you're sitting in front of a computer all day. So I made it a point to just take about 30-minute breaks each day. And sometimes it might be more than just one 30-minute break, just to get outside, walk around, and have something that's not technology related. And then my last tip is it's really easy to get overwhelmed at everything that's happening. I mean, we're all human beings at the end of the day. So I found myself getting caught in that trap of, looking on Instagram and seeing all these other like teacher posts and social work posts. And I'm questioning, am I doing too little? Am I doing too much? And so when I get stressed out, I'm really just trying to bring it back to the basics and remind myself that there's like 3 things I'm truly here to work on: making sure kids are safe, that they are fed, and that they feel connected. So that's all I've got to share today. Hope some of this was some helpful tips and some resources that you guys can use, and some different ways to think about how you can program for students on the spectrum.
All right. So here we are. We have a little more time. I'm going to bring up Lisa, your video as well. And Sean as well. You guys can come on video if you like. Yeah, so we have a little more time. I know that there's some good conversation. I was monitoring kind of off and on the chat. Lisa, was there anything you wanted to kind of bring out specifically that you wanted to echo more on?
I just think that keeping connected is the most important thing, and self-care. I think that right now that connection that you have with your students is what's going to get them through. So even if you're not connecting, know that at some level, if you're still trying, they will hear that, and they'll hopefully be able to, at least know that you didn't give up. So that would be my most important tip.
Yeah. Sean, how about you?
A lot of great stuff in the chat, guys, and it has been such an honor and privilege to be able to share out some of the cool work that myself and these panelists are doing with all of you. I think my last kind of parting word of advice would be twofold. One, it's okay if it doesn't work. It's okay if at the end of the day you look back on your day and you're not really sure what just happened. Been there, done that,
Yep.
Feel it on a spiritual level.
Yep.
And so do your kids and so do your colleagues. And so that whole grace and patience moment. And then 2, I do not practice what I preach on this one, but certainly something I'm happy to promote is it's okay to say that I can't do this right now. I can't tend to that, thing that I was doing or taking care of in the building at one point. I can't maintain that right this second, but I want to get back to it as soon as I can, or think maybe about a creative alternative to address that student challenge or need or role or responsibility. I think, making sure that you're advocating for yourself too. We talk a lot about student care and family support, but we need to bring our best selves to that situation. And so ensuring that we're doing that.
Yeah, well said. And I would just add from Jaclyn, she said something right at the end that really stayed with me when she recorded it with me, and then I just heard again that her goal, her 3-part goal, is to keep kids fed, safe, and connected. And we've talked about it in different ways through all these webinars, and I'm sure it'll come up again tomorrow. But one of the many things that I know all of you are dealing with is the just very real material differences in conditions for people, where we're trying to reach families, and families are wondering where they're going to eat or how they're going to pay bills given that their jobs have gone away, or all the other things that we know happen in our country around inequality. And that's not true for all our families. Some of our families are more, if anything, they're kind of like the one Jaclyn talked about, where they're all kind of stuck in the house and they're trying to do a BIP for the kid to keep them together. But there's a lot of families that are really struggling in ways that are really being accelerated by this crisis. And so looking at fed, safe, and connected really feels like a grounding thing for me. I do want to just let you know that and I know, Sean, you shared the link. If you could put the link one more time, just as people
Sure.
can. This is the Google Drive shared folder. When you go there, guys, you'll see it's stuff from this presentation. It's also from the first 2, and it's going to be eventually the next 2 that are starting tomorrow, the EC and the middle school one. That is also the place where if you go and you see something that says PLC sign up, if you'd like to keep this going and stay in touch with us around an alternative ed kind of themed PLC, We want to hear from you. You just gotta, it's free. There's no cost. Just put in your name and your email and a good time that you'd like to do the PLC. We will be meeting as a whole group next week to talk about all those things and talk about additional ways to support you. Just 2 more commercials before I say goodbye and thank you to these guys. We are doing a summer institute that will be virtual this year, that both of these guys will be involved in some way or another. It is typically live in person at Loyola, but it's going to be virtual this year given everything we're dealing with. So it's July 16th and 17th. If you're on our school social work network, you've seen an ad about that already. We'll be saying more about it, but it's going to be a lot of what we're talking about today. It's how to do this work, how to stay connected, how to get ready for next year, assuming we're all back in the fall, what that looks like. The second thing, and you've gotten to see 3 great examples of it, is our school mental health advanced practice program. If that's interesting to you, let me know. I didn't have time with everything else I was juggling to put the link in, but I can respond to that, and you can find more info out about that on our Loyola website. Mostly though, I just want to say this, this panel just gives me so much joy because there's such energy and passion and just intentionality in these 3 folks. They've thought about this work, they care about it, they do it really well. They also are really trying to take care of themselves in it. And I appreciate, Sean, you being honest about the times you do that better than other times. You know, we're all guilty of that, I think. But we're also really trying to do this work well and to do it hopefully in support to all of you that came today. So we hope to see you again. Go to that Google Drive. Let us know if you want to keep talking. And otherwise, again, Sean and Lisa and Jaclyn, who's in virtual space, thank you and take care, everybody.
Bye.
Happy Earth Day.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yes.
All right. So I've stopped recording. I think we're good. So thank you guys. How was that? I know there was a little bit of tech stuff at the beginning on my end, but it was okay.
I thought it was great.
Yeah, it was fine. I forgot about half the stuff I wanted to say, but that's okay.
Well, what you said was really good, and the group I think really took to it, and it was really exciting to